Hi there, Yona Gregory again, landlord and real estate attorney in Connecticut. I am here to recap last week's landlord law activities and just give you an update as far as the moratorium and what's going on in housing court in Connecticut post-COVID. So today is October 7th of 2020. Just to be clear, this is only applying to, right now, what's going on right now. This is not generic legal advice for housing court. So last week we talked about the moratorium that the governor had signed, extending the moratorium in Connecticut to January and carving out certain exceptions to that. Again, we are a little confused as to the exceptions and whether the CDC declaration, in other words, the affidavit that people are handing in to their landlords, whether that stops the process in all evictions or only in non-payment cases. But I have sent an email out to the governor and some other people to try to get clarification on that, because it seems to me the intent of giving the affidavit to your landlord in an effort to stop the eviction and to, in other words, become the moratorium till January 1st applies to those people who give you the affidavit. I feel as if the intention of that is only to address non-payment people since COVID. So it doesn't seem like a serious nuisance person should be able to give the affidavit to their landlord and have the eviction stop, because otherwise you're never going to get a serious nuisance person out, since everybody's going to fill out the affidavit. So I am waiting for clarification on that, and I'll update everyone as soon as I do have the clarification, because again, the affidavit, we have to know exactly what the affidavit stops the eviction for and which cases do not apply to the affidavit. Speaking of the affidavit, I've had some clients calling me asking me, hey, listen, what if I just serve notice to quit anyway, and I think I can scare people into leaving after they've handed me the affidavit? That is not a good idea. So the CDC is the federal agency that invented the affidavit and the original moratorium until January 1st. And that order, if you read it, and it's actually attached to the notice to quits now as a requirement, if you read the order, there are federal fines, like hefty fines for anyone violates the order. So not only would you, be breaking the law in Connecticut here as far as the governor's extension, the 9E order, you could be breaking federal law and then have all sorts of fines and everything. So, at the end of it, it's not worth it to do that. If your tenant gives you the affidavit, stop right there, wait till clarification if it's something besides a non-payment. But needless to say, just don't take any chances. You do not want to be sued for federal offense. The other thing I wanted to talk about as far as updating you in housing law is some good news, and that is that hearings are starting to be processed. So the hearings are virtual hearings, which is great, because the not only great for me, I don't have to drive, but it's great for the tenant too, because now they don't have to drag themselves to court, miss work, and it's really not a great place to be, especially with a pandemic. So the housing hearings that are virtual, the procedure for them is a little bit different than it was in regular court. In one sense, it's different because it's actually running on time and it's not a complete waste of your day. So that's actually a nice thing. And the other sense is there's some procedural things, elements relative to what happens if a party doesn't show up. So those are some different things, and you should know about that because it can affect the time in which you're going to get your judgment. If you want to know what the new procedure is, you can email me at evict@yonalaw.com, so evict@yonalaw.com. Last thing I want to talk about is my client had a news story on Channel 3 this past week about his eviction, and it was great that the press finally took something up with the landlord's side of view. And this was a particularly difficult case to watch, because this landlord is owed like $40,000. These people moved into his academic rental right on the beach in Westbrook, and plunked down with no intention of paying rent. They had been evicted from the last two houses that they rented, also in Westbrook. And my client admittedly didn't do his research, so it's important, you've got to screen tenants. But he admits that he didn't do his research, but the punishment here does not fit the crime of being a little bit sloppy. And truly, he just took them on their word. They seemed like good people. Anyway, he's gotten saddled with these people not paying rent for a year now. We filed it in January of last year, and then we were just about ready to get a hearing in court when COVID happened. So the Court of Connecticut, rather than still processing things from the prior year or prior to COVID, just stopped, altogether, stopped doing anything seemingly for like 6 months. So during that time, my client, was stuck with these people over the summer. His cottage on the beach is a summer rental. He was unable to rent it for the summer. The hardship was very significant, and I'm really glad that the news highlighted his story from a landlord's point of view, and really, they really expose the tenants for what they are, as far as how many times they've been evicted. And it's important to show both sides of these kinds of things, and a lot of times you do see the tenant side. So needless to say, that was a great news story on the landlord's side this week, and I look forward to updating everyone next week.